Welcome to Be Youer, where we talk about healing and creating a soul-aligned life of freedom so you can live fully alive and true to yourself. I'm happy you're here. Hey guys, it's been a while since I've podcasted, but I'm coming to you from my cozy room with my PJs on, the dim lighting. We had a snowstorm, and I'm so excited to talk about going from perfectionism to flow and the journey I'm on right now, and the immediate relief from stuckness that it has created. And, I have been doing video episodes for the Beyond Band-Aid series, but moving forward, I'm gonna maybe do them as inspired. I am loving the idea of just kind of like pulling out the mic whenever and just talking without having to worry about like a bright light in my face or whatever. So it kind of goes along with the topic, which is really interesting because up until recently, I've been really held back by the need to perfect everything, which if I were to perfect this podcast episode and want video and everything, then I wouldn't be doing it right now. It would be held back. It would be pushed off. It would be maybe happen later, but maybe not, So I was held back by this need to over-prepare and plan out everything. And that looked like taking way too much time on every single little task, which really held me back. And then only sharing what felt ready, quote unquote, which that alone has just, there's so many amazing things I've created, written, recorded, that I never posted, that stayed in the drafts, that I never really took action on because of this whole perfectionism thing. So the thing is, I never identified as a perfectionist. So I never paid attention to what it was all about. Like if I heard about it, I kind of tuned out, or I just didn't identify with it. I didn't relate to it. But like just a little backstory, like a very long story short way to put it is that there was a chapter of my life where I was super like burnt out and my health was struggling and everything. And that led me to a chapter of healing and spirituality and really prioritizing more of a slow, gentle way of being. And then that was followed by a chapter of really disciplined, strict focus and hard work. And that felt like I was doing what I believed was necessary for success in my goals, but that doesn't mean it actually was necessary. It was what I believed was necessary. And this chapter always, like, it felt like I knew I was front loading a lot of work. I knew I was in a chapter of, I would call it hustle in a way. I just felt like I just needed to do this a little bit longer and then we'll be past it. It kind of felt like I was almost at the finish line over and over, but then more tasks would pop up. And this has happened throughout my life, but this is just a very clear way and like way more drastically holding me back from living than any other time in my life. So it kind of was like what I thought would take a month took more like a year. And like it kind of scares me because some people could let perfectionism get in the way of more than a month, more than a year. They could end up on their deathbed, like not ever fully truly living how they wanted to because of this whole overthinking, insecure pattern, which we're going to get into. So at times throughout this last chapter, I would sacrifice part of my routine that I really set in when I was in my healing era, when I was in my gentle era. And like, I would skip exercising and moving my body more often because I was like, I just need to get through this part of, my life and then I can bring all that back. And I would still like work out, just not every day. And then at one point, I completely stopped journaling. And I'm going to come back to why that's important. But I had this long to-do list. And I thought that whatever came out as I was journaling, it didn't have anything to do with that to-do list. You know what I mean? Like, it was more of a distraction from this to-do list that I knew I needed to get done. It was kind of like I had great ideas. I made a to-do list of what needed to be done, and I thought it was going to take a certain amount of time, and it took way longer because I was being a perfectionist about it, which I'm going to kind of explain. So at a certain point, I felt really fed up with how long things were taking, how stuck I felt, like the reality setting in, like, and kind of, I was always super aware. So especially like this was frustrating for me as a growth-oriented person who was literally helping other people change their health and their lives. I had such a strong awareness of what I was doing, but I was also like really willing to overlook it because I just wanted to make things perfect. And I kind of like knew and continued to self-sabotage because I was like, once I finish all of these projects in a way that's perfect, like then I can address this kind of thing. And I'll have front-loaded all the hard work. I just wanted it out of the way. So, and I'm going to just tell you why this is so not helpful and backwards. But anyway, so I finally got to a point where I actually did accomplish most of that list. And I finally got back into all of my health routines and my mindset and present and mindfulness routines. So I finally picked back up my journal and I started the practice of EFT again after a long time of not doing any of this kind of stuff. So basically with EFT tapping, you're tapping on different basically acupressure points on your upper body and your face as you're speaking about limiting beliefs and turning them into more empowering beliefs. And it also can be used for like pain and trauma and emotional things. So for me, I always journal and get really deep into my subconscious beliefs. And I do that through asking some questions that really kind of like break through the surface level beliefs and the things that you kind of are aware that is, you know, that you're thinking or that you're doing. And you kind of get deeper into like, well, why am I doing that? Like, why, like, what would happen if blah, blah, blah. So I was doing this around that stuckness. And I was letting things come out onto the pages as I was journaling. And as soon as I tapped back into my inner guidance, I could see that I was dealing with perfectionism. And that led me to research more about it. So I learned that perfectionism is basically fear and insecurity and overcompensating and trying to be criticism proof. I think perfectionism has been thought of as like a badge of honor, and it really shouldn't be. I think a lot of people think it's like it means that they're really diligent, and in a way it does, but it's stemming from a place of fear. And typically it stems from insecurity and a fear of judgment, like a fear of what other people would think. So in my particular circumstances, this might be part of it, but the truth is, like, I've been putting myself out there and not really caring what other people think for years. There's been just I just don't, like, of course I have like a little bit of humanness about that, but at the same time, I've had this unique experience of growing up with Danny, and that he's my brother and he was on the spectrum, and his life and the way he lived and everything about who Danny was, and even like the elements of the autism, and then his passing, like it all taught me so much. And 3 of the most important lessons that he taught me in relation to perfectionism is 1, there are no barriers that you can't overcome to do what you're truly passionate about. Like, there's no reason to not try the things that you care about or that you're passionate about or love. And then 2, life on earth is precious. Like, we're all going to pass away. You don't know when that's going to happen. And this is your one chance to be you on earth and in this time and space and in this life. So don't waste your life being anything but your true self. And 3, not caring what anyone else thinks about you creates a lot of joy. And also, it also goes along with this idea of like what others think truly doesn't matter. Because like Danny just did not have very much social awareness, which was like, it kind of gave him this blissful ignorance when it came to other people judging him. And he was just so happy and did nothing to be cool. He did everything he did because he genuinely wanted to. And I grew up with this example and this energy. And I don't know. I just don't really think the root of my perfectionism was really about like a fear of judgment. I think it might be a layer, but not like the main thing. But what I did know is that for me, it was more of a fear of overwhelm. And I think that like some people could relate to either one of these, and there might be other like things below the perfectionism. But I know that it was overwhelmed for me because, first of all, I've had so many times throughout my life where I felt overwhelmed, and like it's one of my least favorite feelings. And I can connect this idea of overwhelm to like strong emotional responses. And a lot of times that triggers your subconscious to avoid that, to try to keep you safe. So when I was in this past chapter, I was trying to front load everything and make it overwhelm-proof. Like I wanted to be ready to step into my next chapter so I didn't feel stressed about lifing and juggling relationships and work and self-care and all of the other adulting things. I wanted to get the hard stuff out of the way, and that's just not how life works. And there's so many other things I have to say about that are going to be really relieving. This is just a really heavy way to think of things, and it's not the ultimate truth. So in retrospect, I can see that I made things extra difficult for myself because 1, I didn't want to end up overwhelmed later on. And 2, I really wanted to push off the next chapter because I was anticipating overwhelm. So in a way, I kind of felt like this chapter of hustle, but it's more like behind the scenes, perfecting things, is kind of safer than me moving forward in all the things I actually want to be doing, because I could end up overwhelmed. And that's like the number one thing my body is trying to protect me from right now. So because I will never accept a limiting mindset as my norm, I used my EFT sessions to focus on rewiring this fear of overwhelm altogether. So I started to focus on ideas like I can always ask for help, I can always find support, I can always hire support, I can always decide to set new boundaries, I can decide to pivot in my work, I can always pause, reassess, and make changes as I navigate my life. Overwhelm is actually just a temporary signal that triggers me to make a change in my life. I've decided it's no longer a long-term state for me. And when I really got into my subconscious mind and like rewiring these beliefs and like really kind of giving a whole new mindset to the idea of overwhelm, it really created a lot of relief for me, and it helped me see things for what they were. I also recognized that I had been working hard to prevent overwhelm, so hard that I was working on things that I had no proof were necessary to work on, because I was too busy perfecting them to share them with anyone or get any sort of feedback, either from others or even from my own feelings. You know what I mean? Like I was living completely in the mind rather than the experience or the feelings or the creation of things. Like it was all mental and logical, and I just knew this way of living had to go. And that's what led me to my next chapter, the chapter I've been shifting into recently, which is flow. Instead of carefully planning my next steps in advance, making decisions from logic, being in my mind, I'm shifting into taking the next small step according to my inner guidance, day to day, moment to moment, and making decisions from my heart and being in my body and keeping things moving instead of getting stuck and paralyzed in overthinking and perfectionism. So this chapter of flow is also about creativity, feminine receptivity, allowing things to be more easeful and natural. It's about less force and more trust. It's about tuning into my desires and honoring them and choosing to believe that they will lead to better than hard work ever could. So remember how I stopped journaling in my perfectionism hard work chapter? Part of the significance of that is that I was intentionally cutting off that process of tapping into my internal guidance. I didn't want to connect to my intuition because I knew that it very well may guide me to abandon my to-do list. And back then I was like blinders on. I need to do what I need to do. So I kind of was thinking why would I want to cut this off? Why would I want to cut off my intuition, especially as, like I said, a growth-oriented person who really cares about her health, really is very spiritual, all of that. Why would I want to cut this off? I had been saying that I wanted to live in flow for years, but now it's I'm cutting that off. And other than my fear of overwhelm, the root of that is that I was also afraid of the lack of control that happens in flow. There's so much unknown. It's unpredictable to trust your heart over logic. So if I were to really lean into flow, I would have no idea what would unfold. So I've had the ability to shift into a life of flow for years now. I've stepped away from things that felt restrictive. But I self-sabotaged myself into staying in rigidity because it felt safer. And I don't like rigidity. I've done certain visualizations, and when I'm guided to picture the energy that I am struggling with, it feels like red, shapes, red squares and rectangles, very angular. This is just truly what came to mind when I'm closing my eyes deep in a meditative state, visualizing. The energy of feeling stuck to me feels very school-like. It feels red folders, very scholastic school thinking, logic, and that's the energy I was struggling with. And then it was breathe in what you want to bring in, and I would picture blue ocean waves, and that was the energy of what I wanted to bring in, aka flow. So I've known for a while that I've wanted to shift into flow and away from rigidity and too much structure, and basically this life of living very logical and in the mind. Flowing with your internal guidance, it doesn't feel as predictable, clean, concise, or safe as following a logical, perfect plan, but it does feel a lot more free, fun, juicy, exciting, limitless, alive. It actually feels alive, good, here we go. So it's so crazy that with all the good that can come from it, and the fact that that's really what I have always wanted, it just doesn't feel as safe, and your subconscious mind will always prioritize keeping you safe. And it only goes on those beliefs that are deeply ingrained, that are usually formed based off of deeply emotional experiences and traumas and things like that from the past, or stories you've been told. So yeah, I think that this transition into flow has been really interesting. So if you're wondering what this shift looks like tangibly, like what I'm actually doing differently, it looks like tuning into my intuition daily. And for me, honestly, this kind of is just happening naturally, constantly, but I intentionally do this every day by journaling. And there's times when I do have a full day and I end up just using my phone note, my phone voice memos, or there's an app called Otter, Otter, and you can just like basically click the record button and speak, and it's kind of like I use it like I'm journaling. But if I can sit down with my journal, that's top tier is writing in my journal. And a lot of times I take some deep breaths or meditate or whatever beforehand, but basically I'm tuning inward to my inner guidance and I'm sorting out what has come to mind and also how I'm feeling and what my intuition is telling me. And I also stay in a flow of messy but inspired action. This is different from forcing action that feels like hard work or preparation. This is action that feels energizing because you actually feel pulled to do it, and it creates instead of stagnates. I figure out my messy, inspired action when I tune into my intuition. So a lot of times the journaling helps me identify my messy action. A lot of times it just comes to me. So, for example, forced and preparation-based action could look like planning out a series for social media, while flow-based action could be recording and posting one video on a topic that energizes me. And also, the first could take me 2 hours, and the second could take me 5 minutes. I think a big part of it for me is definitely not like wasting time on the things that don't really matter. It's like, what do you really care about? And let's take some action on it and not get stuck in the little details that don't matter. So in addition to that, that's like the main formula to like how I'm changing things in my actual life to shift into more flow. But I'm exploring flow in every way. So from keeping things moving and flowing through exercise and moving my body, moving my lymphatic system, moving my thoughts into my journal or into a conversation or into a recording, moving my creativity into art, anything like that. So I'm finding that flow in anything encourages flow in everything else. Everything within us is so connected. It is so incredible. It is so cool. And I'm going to share more on all of this later, but I did want to point that out. So perfectionism is this sneaky thing that keeps us stuck. But the world doesn't need more perfect. So it's really, really not. It's not the right way. The world needs each of us in our unique, one-of-a-kind nature, having the ripple impact only we can have as imperfect humans. Because that's what we are. Like, we are not designed to be perfect. I remember walking through Costa Rica and like looking around at all of the different plants and realizing none of it is symmetrical or perfect, or there's no like perfection in nature. And we're part of nature. We're human beings. We're not perfect. Nothing perfect is good. It's not helpful. I don't find it very valuable for things to be perfect. So what I've learned since making shifts from perfectionism to flow is that it has created immediate relief from that pressure and heaviness we feel when we overthink. I know many people can relate to when you feel stuck and behind and you feel like you have goals and a vision and ideas, but you feel like you've not even made a dent in them. And you feel like you just start overthinking, like, time's passing. I want to do that. You start overthinking things, and then you're like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I want to make it perfect in this way. And you overthink, and then you wake up, or you're going to sleep, whatever it is, you're in some silence and you're reflecting, and you're just like continuing to overthink in a way that you're like feeling a lot of heaviness and like pressure about where you are, what you're doing. Like all of this activity in our minds like is not helpful, right? So I've found that in flow, when you take the messy inspired action, a couple things happen. I think one, you're signaling to your subconscious that you're safe, even if something's not perfect, which is kind of the goal of taking the messy inspired action over and over and over, so that you're a person who takes that action and who basically creates a life doing the things that you feel pulled to do. But it also like creates clarity and momentum as you do it. So even if you take messy action that doesn't work, it gives you feedback. It's like turning on a faucet for the first time in forever, and the water coming out at first is like brown and gross, but eventually it comes out clear. I think a lot of people don't want to suck at something, or they don't want to be a beginner. And it's like, just bite the bullet and just like suck it up kind of thing. Like that's what I had. I kind of told myself that, like, when you start putting yourself out there, like even right now, like making this podcast episode, like if it turned out bad, like it's kind of like, okay, but I got so much feedback in how the experience went for me. Okay, next time I'm going to change this, or that topic, it didn't really hit, like let me try something. You like learn what worked and what didn't. You pivot and you have more clarity and momentum. So once you have that and you keep taking action, not only do you feel safer taking the action, but things start to work better. And your intuition will always lead you to where you're actually meant to be. And it's a better place than where you'd end up with simple like logic and plans and forced action. And this is the magic of taking control of your mindset, plus tuning into your intuition, plus taking that messy, imperfect, inspired action. And I'm so happy that this is the type of work I offer and help people with. And I just think that if you're relating to this, I know that feeling of overwhelm. I know the feeling of there's a lot of scattered ideas and thoughts and comparison, and there's just like a lot going on in your mind. It is so worth it. Even if you have to like, say you have a lot of overwhelming phone notes and like whatever project you're working on, you say you have a lot of preparation-based things you've done for it that kind of feel like overwhelming, literally compile them all in one folder or document or whatever, and just title it like for later if needed or something like that. Like for me, I really did put everything in one spot. Like I kind of organized it, and then I was just like, I don't really need this, because from now on, I'm only just making decisions from the day to day, the moment to moment. Like I don't really need a plan. And if I do need to refer to this, I can. And it has taken this weight off of me. And as I sit down to take an action step, whatever that is, to create some piece of content or to take a step forward in a new offer or create something new for my room, like I'm creating a piece of art for my bedroom, like whatever it is, I don't have this like list I need to like go back to and like get into and like get my mind around. And I'm going from the most excited feelings in my heart. Like I'm going towards the thing that feels energizing, that's waking me up, that's making me feel alive. It's like the opposite of dread and dullness and feeling like ugh about something. Like you just feel so much freer. And this is how I want to guide people moving forward. I mean, I've been helping people with their health, and that's always going to be an element of what I do. But when I help someone with their health, it always relates to their life. And what I've found is that no matter what you're feeling stuck in, and no matter what your goal is, there are limiting beliefs typically in the way. That's usually like what is really preventing you from doing what you know you want to be doing. And I think that there's so much available to us. Freedom, fun, a juicy, exciting, limitless, alive life. And something about this unique time and space, maybe it's like social media and just the ability to compare ourselves and seeing so many people be successful in so many things. And also the fact that like in today's time and space, we have limitless opportunities. We could, like our ancestors would be blown away by what's available to us right now. And I think that sometimes that can be also very overwhelming. Like I could go on this career path, but if I do that, then I can't do this thing. And my answer to all of it is to tap into your intuition and identify the next small step. Always. Do what feels most exciting right now. I am someone who does believe you can do it all. You just can't do it all at one time. And there's no point in trying to map it all out like I have done a million times. I think having a big vision and big goals as like your guiding light is a really great thing. Like I love my vision board, but at the same time, that's not something I want to be restricting me and like a plan that I need to like get myself prepared for to like step into. Like I don't want to be thinking so much. I want to be flowing. And that's what this is all about. And I hope that you stick around for the updates and the other little pieces of this that I'm going to continue to share. Like I'm sharing right now, I don't have a big plan. I have some ideas and I'm going to tune in each time I go to write and to record, and I'm just going to let it flow. And I think I have a general structure of, the brand or the mission is me doing what I'm here to do. And like, I don't have to label that. I think that can be really overwhelming. I think that will come with time. So let me be an example, and I hope that this was helpful. If you loved it, please share it with someone else who may love it, and please subscribe and do all the things, rate, and go subscribe to my Substack, like all the things that could support, I would appreciate. And I will also link my website and my offers in the show notes. But otherwise, go do something that your intuition is pulling you towards today, or take out your journal and I'll give you a question to journal on. So if you were to take out your journal and shift more into flow right now, you could ask yourself, where do I feel stuck? And where am I overthinking? And then ask yourself, what do I really want? And then ask yourself, what would be the most exciting next step to move me towards what I want without holding on to perfectionism and overthinking? And just see where that takes you. You even could do just one question, could be like, how am I feeling and what's my next step? If you want something even simpler. And just let it flow. The hardest part of journaling is getting started, but it is like the most incredible, free, accessible tool that we all have. So good luck, and I love you. Thank you for listening. The best way to say thank you is by subscribing and leaving a review. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you love or post it on social media and tag me at KristenRoseXO. You can find all my free resources and current offers at KristenRoseXO.com. That's Kristen with an E. Everything is linked for you in the show notes. Have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you soon.